All right, welcome to Pints and Punditry here at the Pitchside Pub as we get set up. We're going to be doing this live streaming, maybe not every day, but try to do it a lot more often. We're calling it the Taproom Treble. We're going to try and talk about three topics each day that maybe aren't big enough to do a full video on, or I just simply don't have time for. Videos are very time consuming with all the editing. So we're going to try and live stream and talk about some topics that maybe otherwise I wouldn't get to talk about, but I have opinions on because that's what this channel is all about. So if you don't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me down below. You can also, we're going to put some of this stuff on Instagram as well. You can check out the Pitchside Pub on Instagram, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on TikTok. We're Pitchside Pub everywhere. Big weekend, a lot of stuff going down. You know, I don't typically break down the ins and outs of a particular game or a team or, really tactical stuff like that. If I do, I'll make a full video on it. But I do want to talk about some of the topics that went down this week, the stuff everybody's talking about, and that's what we're going to do here. The first one is the ridiculously dangerous and incredibly just reckless challenge in the Crystal Palace Millwall game where the goalkeeper came out and basically just kicked Jean-Philippe Mateta in the head. And it's, it's one of those incidents that just makes everybody sort of go, oh my God. And everybody immediately jumps to a bunch of conclusions and a bunch of opinions. And, it was obviously just a horrible, horrible incident, right? Nothing good came out of it, but there were also a lot of failings across the board, right? So, the Millwall keeper, obviously, there has to be some repercussions for him. Now, in no way do I think he was trying to hurt Mateta in that, I'm going to come out and I'm going to kick this guy in the head, because that's literally what happened. I mean, he got kicked in the head with the studs. I mean, we talk about red cards for studs to the leg. He got studs to the side of his head. He had to get stretchered off and get a ton of stitches. But I don't think the keeper was coming out going, I'm going to, end this guy's career. It's just one of those things that happens in sports when you are being aggressive and you commit to a play. And I would venture to say about halfway through that challenge, he went, oh no, right? I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to get where I thought I was going to get to. I'm not going to get to where I need to get to. And this is going to end poorly, right? I'm sure he knew that halfway through that challenge. And yeah, he tried to defend himself a little bit afterwards, but it was not particularly heartfelt, right? He sort of knew, I done messed up here. And so obviously he got red carded, although it wasn't as obvious, so we'll get to that in a second. It wasn't as obvious as it should have been to Michael Oliver. But, he got punished and what have you. There needs to be a punishment there's a longer term punishment, 5 games, 10 games. People have thrown out all sorts of things. It just needs to be hefty enough and serious enough that he thinks before he does this again, right? Again, I don't think there was any malice here, and the Millwall coach and the player both reached out to Crystal Palace and to Mateta and apologized. And again, I don't think he was trying to hurt somebody. It was reckless, it was careless, and it was dangerous, and it can't happen again. So the player has to learn the lesson, and there has to be enough of a punishment that before he goes out on another challenge to another player in another game, he goes, oh, and something in his mind triggers enough to make him go, nope, last time I did this, it did not go well. So that'll all work itself out. That's not really my concern. There were two takeaways I had from this that I wanted to discuss. The first one is the response from the Millwall fans. And if you missed this, I'm sure you've seen the replay of the challenge at this point. There's a picture up there if you haven't, but I'm sure you've seen a replay of the challenge. It's violent. It's bad. It's as bad as it looks in this picture. It's as bad as everybody's making it out to be. People are talking about it being one of the worst, most violent plays, worst challenges in football history, certainly in recent history. I mean, it's up there. It's certainly in that discussion. And then while Mateta is laying on the ground being tended to and being stretchered off, the Millwall fans chant, let him die, let him die. And this is just one of the most appalling things I've ever heard. And, I tweeted out yesterday that there were failings across the board from everybody pretty much except Mateta and Crystal Palace here. I mean, obviously the failing from the Millwall keeper, failings from the crowd, and failings from Michael Oliver for needing VAR to realize that this was a red card somehow. But there needs to be serious repercussions for the Millwall fans too. And I got pushback on Twitter from some Millwall fans trying to justify this behavior by saying, "Oh, this is commonplace. That's a common chant. Everybody says that." That doesn't make it okay. I'm sorry, that does not make it okay. And first of all, I don't believe that. I've heard a lot of footballing chants over the years. I don't hear "let him die" particularly frequently, particularly when it's actually a situation where that could have happened. And his life didn't end up being in danger, but you don't know that when you're the fans. You saw a guy take studs to the head. You don't know what's happening there. Imagine chanting that and the guy actually did die. How would that make you feel? It's just appalling behavior from the Millwall fans, who apparently have a history of this sort of stuff. I wasn't familiar with your game, Millwall fans, but it's not a good one. But it's just not okay. And if that sort of chant is more prevalent in English football that I'm aware of, get in that comment section and let me know. If that's true, your whole country has a cultural failing. And I tweeted that out yesterday as well. Something tells me that's not the case. I don't think this is commonly accepted fan behavior across England. I don't think it's that extreme. I know the history of the hooligans and the rowdiness and some vile chants and things like that, but this is too far. This is too far. And if I sound like I'm on my high horse and I think I'm better than you, I do. I am better than you if you think chanting "let him die" at an athlete who is injured, seriously injured on the field. If you think that's okay, yeah, I'm better than you. I'm okay saying that. I don't think that's a particularly high bar to clear, and I think a lot of people are better than you. It's certainly not just me. So awful, appalling response from Millwall, and just really has no place in the game. Speaking of no place in the game, Michael Oliver, my God. Now, Michael Oliver's not a bad official in general, as far as officials go. He's one of the more reputable ones. So I can't say he has no place in the game, but there needs to be a review, just like there needs to be a review of the Millwall fans. There needs to be a review of how Michael Oliver missed this and how he didn't, what was the process that made him think this was not an immediate red card and that he had to go to VAR. And first of all, for all of you who are against VAR and want it kicked out of the game, thank God it's not. On a play like this, can you imagine? He was not going to give this a red card. If there was not a VAR official in his ear saying, Michael, did you see that? If there wasn't somebody telling him that, this was not going to be a red card. This was going to be maybe a yellow. I'm not sure he even had a card out. He was not reaching for a red card initially. This had to go to a VAR review to make it the most obvious red card we've seen in a long time. And I tend to give officials the benefit of the doubt because they've got a lot of ground to cover. And you never know if somebody's obscuring their view. And maybe just at the second there was a collision here, another player ran in front of Michael Oliver and he didn't see, the impact or the actual connection of the foot to the head or the stuff you see in this photo and didn't see quite how violent and awful it was. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But one, I've seen some photos where Michael Oliver is staring right at the play with an unobstructed view. Again, taken with a grain of salt because we don't have all the angles, but it sure looked like he was looking at it. But at the very least, you saw a massive coming together, and in those kinds of incidents, you hear some sort of reaction from the crowd, or a hush falls over, or clearly a player lying on the ground. You got to stop and at the very least get in your own VAR guy's ear and go, hey, I didn't quite see that. What did I miss there? And maybe that's what happened, but that's not the reporting that's coming out. It looks like Michael Oliver had a yellow card ready to go and then was told hey, I think it's worse than that. So again, I'm not saying Michael Oliver should never ref again or anything ridiculous like that, or that he's even a bad official, because he generally is one of the more respected ones, but I do think a review in the process of how that was possibly not seen on the field would be worthwhile. So, really just a bad incident all around in that FA Cup match. Otherwise, a great FA Cup weekend. Some games go into penalties. We're getting down to the quarters. So a great FA Cup weekend, but that was a black mark on the weekend for sure. things are getting good in other places as well. We got to get outside of England sometimes, and La Liga is, man, the La Liga race is going to be one of the best in Europe. I mean, we're not getting a good Premier League race because Liverpool's running away with it. Italy's got some close teams, but it's not, it's not a great race. Germany is still up in the air a little bit. France, no, it's done. But La Liga, we have a legitimate 3-team horse race. I mean, Real Madrid sitting in 3rd place right now is borderline unheard of, but that's what happens when we have a season where Atletico Madrid is, competing with the big boys. And they are, for so long, La Liga is, 1A and 1B with Barcelona and Real Madrid. They're always back and forth. But there are years where Atletico Madrid, the other little brother at the table, comes to play with the big boys. And I'm demeaning them a little bit because they are a great club with a great history and they have been competitive for a long time. But they are the only other club in La Liga that really has a chance. After that, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, Real Betis is sitting in 6th. They just beat Real Madrid this weekend. Other teams can beat other teams. Barcelona has 5 losses. Real Madrid has 4. So anybody can beat anybody at any given time. But really, the drop-off after those top 3 to the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is big. It's a big drop-off in terms of talent, in terms of ability to compete in Europe, in terms of just depth as a league. But it is fantastic for La Liga that there are 3 people at this party, not just 2, right? They sort of love when it's Barcelona and Real Madrid, and that makes for you because they're always there, and that's just such a great history there. But Atletico Madrid is here to play, and Diego Simeone has that team doing his thing. And say what you will about the style of play, but by God, it works. It works, and it didn't suppress Julian Alvarez's ability to score goals the way some people thought it might. He's having a great season, and that was man, you can't say overpay because he's having a great year, but God, they paid so much money to Manchester City for him that it almost felt like it was going to be impossible for him to ever live up to it. You see that 100 million plus price tag, and you just go, God, he's going to be a disappointment before he ever plays a game. It makes it so hard to live up to, but he's doing it. He's doing a great job. So that Atletico Madrid is there to stay, and these are not great Barcelona or Real Madrid teams right now. Barcelona has had to get by on smoke and mirrors for a few years. They're good. They're obviously good, and Lamine Yamal is a superstar already. I think we are done with the superstar in the making mentality. He's a superstar right now, still in his teenage years. He is a superstar, and Hansi Flick is a good coach. And Barcelona's actually kind of fun to watch this year because they play with this just ridiculous style of we're going to score, you're going to score, everybody's going to score, and we're just going to score one more than you, right? And it's wild, but it's fun. And so they're in good form, but this is not your best Barcelona team, right? For as good as Lamine Yamal is, he is a superstar. He's still a teenager, and they've had some injuries, and they're playing a lot of young kids. Lewandowski's still good, but he's aging, and so this is not your Champions League winning Barcelona teams of past with your Lionel Messi's and all your classic guys. Real Madrid should be, because they've got that level of talent, but they're not meshing the way we quite had hoped. Now, Kylian Mbappe is finding his form without a doubt, but their back line has been so tarnished by injuries that they've had some struggles. And, in addition to the 4 losses, you see 6 draws on there, and that's a lot of dropped points for them, and that's really starting to add up. The midfield is, Jude Bellingham is getting to play more of a midfield role than he did last year, which is good for him because that's where he shines. But they have not had the midfield depth that they've had in years past, and they do not have the defensive depth that they've had in years past. And so, despite the incredible front line with Rodrigo and Vinny Jr. and Kylian Mbappe, and then Jude Bellingham in the middle, they're not as deep as they have been in the past. They're not rotating in the Endricks and the Arda Gulers who could be doing more. Brahim Diaz is getting some playing time, and he's doing nice, but it's just not meshing the way. I mean, you look at that team on paper, and they should be 10 points up on everybody, even this Barcelona and this Madrid team, right? They should be running away with this because that team is just so stacked on paper, but games aren't played on paper. They're played on television, so it just doesn't work out that way. So, La Liga, you have my attention, certainly. I'm checking, the box scores every week to see, if those three teams win, watching those games when I can. It's going to be a good one down to the wire, and it's good to see. It's good to see. I'm always in favor of when somebody else comes to the party, right? Barcelona and Real Madrid will always be there in La Liga. In the Premier League, not all big six teams are going to be there every year. Manchester United, where are you? Tottenham, where are you? But, three or four of them will always be contending. So, there you have your mainstays there. And it's always good when a Nottingham Forest comes to play, or a Fulham, or a Brighton, or a Bournemouth, right? So many in the Premier League this year. That's why it's a great season, even though, it's sort of been done and dusted by Liverpool, but La Liga is not done and dusted by any stretch. So that is definitely worth watching. You know what's not worth watching? MLS. It sucks. It's terrible. It's if you've followed the channel here at all, despite obviously being an American, I could not possibly care any less about Major League Soccer. I feel very strongly on this. I speak out very strongly on this. I think it is a joke of a league. I do not think it is helping the reputation of Americans in the footballing world. There's a reason why all of our best players go play overseas in Europe. I am a Euro snob, admittedly, and embracing it. It is a trash league that is run terribly. Not for the owners. It's not run terribly for the owners because they make a ton of money because the franchise values go up. But from a competitive balance standpoint, it's not a well-run league. And we had the incident, or it's not an incident, but something I'm sure most of you have seen over the weekend where it was announced that Lionel Messi was going to be sitting out or not traveling with the team or not appearing for Inter Miami's next game against the Houston Dynamo. And it's in Houston. So obviously the Dynamo had been promoting Lionel Messi's arrival and come see Messi play and all this stuff. And I don't have a problem with that, right? That's in my non-footballing real world, I'm a marketing executive, so I understand what goes into that, and they'd be stupid not to market that. The problem is the fact that they felt the need to issue the apology you see here, and basically say, we hope you'll come anyway. And that's the inherent problem here, and I saw a lot of European accounts I follow saying, imagine this happening in Europe. Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't, because you guys sell out your games no matter who's playing, because you have 150 years of fandom built into your small little community. We don't have that here because the game hasn't existed that long here, and we don't have the infrastructure. I guess the game has, but we don't. Our league hasn't, our infrastructure hasn't, our clubs haven't. They're 30 years old at most in most cases. And so we don't have that inherent structure, so we do have to, sort of stir up the pot and give people a reason to come out to these games, because I didn't grow up with a professional soccer team in my backyard, and it's why I watch European football. And plus it's just a better product. So I get why they feel like they have to promote Lionel Messi coming to town. And to be honest, I've watched more MLS and Leagues Cup games since Messi joined Inter Miami than I had in its previous existence. Of course, that had been zero, because I could not have cared less, but, Messi's an all-time great, and if I get a chance to see him, I'd like to see him, and if he comes and plays within a couple hours of me, I will go see him in person, because how many more opportunities am I going to have to do that? So, I understand all that. The issue is that, everybody was saying, this is a bad look for MLS. This is what MLS wants. That's the thing. They have created this situation themselves, and I don't think MLS sees this as a problem, which is, of course, the problem, right? MLS has a history of catering to star players, right? They rather than build an infrastructure 30 years ago and build up loyalties and community value and all the things that make, European football so great, they just want to market stars, and they want an immediate TV rights and immediate butts in the stands and immediate gratification, basically instant gratification. And so they have a long history of making exceptions to rules just to get star players into their league, and they will do anything to get a big name European player into MLS in any way, shape, or form. And this dates back to David Beckham and bringing him to the Los Angeles Galaxy. And part of doing that was he was promised future team ownership, which is now how he owns Inter Miami, which is making him hundreds of millions of dollars just by owning it. I mean, he may be losing money, year over year, but he owns a club that has a franchise value. I mean, the most recent franchise sold in Major League Soccer was for $1 billion or something insane like that, half a billion. It's insane money, and David Beckham just was gifted one, right? Just for coming to play in Los Angeles instead of in Europe. And they've offered the same sort of things to Messi. And I've said that, what that does for the competitive balance of the league is absolute trash, right? Because why did Miami get to benefit by getting Lionel Messi? They were the worst team in the league before he got there, and then they went on a nice run and are a good team, and he brought all of his Barcelona friends with him, and now they're a good team. Why Inter Miami, guys? Why? Because he knows David Beckham? Right? Why didn't he go to Houston? Why didn't he go to Kansas City? Why didn't he go to Philadelphia? They make these exceptions to get a star player in because it sells tickets, and more importantly, it sells television rights. And the television rights are what fuel the franchise values, and the franchise values are all the owners care about. None of these owners care about winning or losing or sporting integrity or the sanctity of the competition or any of that stuff. They just, they want to increase their franchise values and say, oh, in addition to owning a basketball team and a baseball team, I own a soccer team. And that's the problem with it, and that's why it's a trash league. So I sort of just laughed at this particular apology because I get why Houston felt like they needed to put it out. In fact, I would go so far as to say MLS probably told them to put it out, probably recommended they put something out if they weren't going to do it already. Because they do promote Lionel Messi come to town. Every club does, and they jack up the ticket prices, and they promote that he's going to be there. I'm sure they had sold out, and that he's not going to be there. And they do all this ahead of time, so they didn't know. And so they do feel like they have to apologize. And that's the bed they've made, and now they need to lay in it. So I don't begrudge the Houston Dynamo for putting this out, but I don't go so far as to say, oh, this is a bad look for MLS. I mean, it is a bad look for MLS, but it's the one they want. MLS is fine with this. They could not possibly care less about this, and they probably called Houston this morning and said, hey, good job. Good job putting that out. We don't care about the backlash, right? We don't care about the backlash. You had to tell everybody because, Messi is the draw. We are the Messi League now. We're not Major League Soccer. And that's why it's a joke. And that's why I am an American with a YouTube channel about European football, because it is just a better product in every way, shape, or form. And until MLS gets some promotion and relegation and starts running themselves like the rest of the footballing world does, couldn't care less about it. I do care about you guys. So get down in that comment section if you have been watching this live. I hope you've been leaving comments, although I haven't been looking at them, so I guess I should do better at that. But I will try to respond to some of them, or the chat. I don't know if the chat was going or not. I'm still getting the hang of some of this live streaming, so bear with me. If there's anything you'd like to see on the screen here as I'm talking, let me know. But get down in that comment section. Hit that subscribe button for me if you haven't already. You can follow us on all the socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, all at Pitchside Pub. And we're going to try and do this more often so we can talk about some of these topics and get it out there in a more timely fashion. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.